Hi, everyone, and welcome to my portion of the Montreal Spring 2022 Book Fair. All virtual this time, still hoping that I'll be able to see you in 2022. So just a primer over who's doing what. I have 4 sections. I've recorded them all separately, so you don't have to listen to me talk for 4 hours. But I have KnopfDoubleday Adult, I have Random House Children's, I have Penguin's Young Readers Group, and then I have Penguin Adult. So this is the KnopfDoubleday highlights, and I'm also going to cover all our promos in this section. Before we dive into all of that, I do want to give you a sincere and quick thank you. I know everyone has been working so hard and the holidays are coming, and even though things are opening up, it's still a pandemic, and every sale requires that little bit of extra effort. So thank you so much for everything that you do for our books and our authors. I'm also going to recommend for holiday prep that you take a peek at our holiday presentation that the entire indie team, coast to coast, pulled together several weeks ago. You should have gotten an invite, but even if you didn't attend, I can send you the recording. And it really is the best primer on what you need to stock up on for Christmas. As I'm sure you know, there's going to be supply chain issues and reprint issues like no other year this year. So I cannot recommend enough looking at those must-have titles and bringing them in. With that said, I'm going to dive straight into spring 2022. All right, we are going to take a look at our Indie Picks promo. This is the same one that's been running for a very long time. I know that you're familiar. Anika will also be presenting her titles from this list, so I'm just going to go through mine. But this is the promo that gives you a 50% flat rate on everything. That's an extra 4 points. And it's all of the reps and our president and CEO, Kristen Cochran's favorite reads for the season. Comes from a really genuine place. I recommend you read everyone's summaries. They're just great. So our first indie pick is Mansions of the Moon. So Shyam Selvadurai, if that name looks and sounds familiar, it's because he's the author of Funny Boy, and Funny Boy has sold 40,000 copies in Canada alone. Also was made into a movie, which I've seen air several times on CBC. This is the story of Buddha and Buddha's wife in 5th century BCE. And it's the story of what happens to Buddha's wife when Buddha leaves her to pursue his spiritual path. So how does a woman live in 5th century BCE when she has been abandoned in a world that really has no place for a woman alone? Absolutely beautiful read, and this was Mary Giuliano's pick. Then Trust, Hernan Diaz. This was my colleague Justin from Toronto's pick, and it is all about who gets to write stories and how and why. Excellent, excellent literary pick. The writing is just top notch. And this is the same team that publishes Lauren Groff's, so Fates and Furies and Matrix, which was one of my favorite books for fall. Basically, we're following the story of 2 tycoons in 1920s and 30s New York, and one of their wives. They're reclusive and unusual, and there's a novel published about them, which seems to reveal some scandal in their past. But who published it and why? Okay, Animal Person, Anika will tell you all about that one. So the Myth of Normal, just to note on this has moved to fall, but it was initially in the spring span. So we're going to keep it here on the promo, but you can order it with the discount. Just know that this is something that's not going to ship until fall. So this is the new Gabor Mate. I mean, this is a huge deal. Don't underorder on this. His last book, In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, is still a perpetual bestseller. Bring some of that backlist in as well. And this is all about how in a society obsessed with wellness, we're more ill than we've ever been. And the key to that is, according to Gabor Mate, is to look at illnesses not only as biological, but also psychosocial. And a special treat, he has written this with his son, Daniel. Water, Water, that's one Anika will tell you about. And then Yod. This is the cookbook that I'm most excited for. Adrian Forte, you might recognize him from Top Chef. He was a finalist, and he cooks Afro-Caribbean cuisine, sometimes with a Canadian twist that's very unexpected. But why I'm particularly excited about this book is I also sell out east in the Atlantic provinces to some smaller communities that you might not have a specialty grocery store. These ingredients are totally sourceable and the recipes are achievable. You can recreate these authentic flavors in your kitchen. And yod, the word means kind of a stick to your food, stick to your ribs food. And you're sure to find lots of amazing meals in here. Disorientation. This was my pick and I loved it. I laughed out loud several times, which is unusual for me in books. If I had been reading in public, I'm sure people would have thought I was insane. So it's the story of a chronically underemployed and underused PhD student who she's Taiwanese and she was kind of forced by her thesis advisor into studying this Chinese poet that she never really even liked. She feels like she was cornered into Asian studies and there's a lot of microaggressions that happen in the department, but nothing she can quite put her finger on. And then one day while she's turning over the same documents over and over again in the archive, she makes an insane discovery that throws the entire campus into civil war. It's amazing satire. It has these laugh out loud moments. It talks about how pervasive racism can be in academia that claims to be one of the most liberal places in the world. I absolutely adored this book. She's big news. I wouldn't be surprised if this is on awards lists. And then every summer after, this was Anika's pick, and I had to read it because she pitched it so wonderfully. I needed to be able to talk to her about it. If you've had any success with Emily Henry's books, you can sell Carly Fortune. She's Canadian. She's super well connected. And this is a romance with a lot of heart and a lot of meat to it. It starts off as a classic story, boy meets girl, summer lake house. The boy lives in town. The girl is more well off. Her family just summers there. And they kind of know that they're the people that are meant for each other until something terrible happens one summer. And the trauma is so deep that they never speak again. That is until about 12 years later when they are reunited and everything begins to get hashed out. It has so much emotion, so much depth. It is not just your typical fluffy beach read, just like Beach Read by Emily Henry wasn't. Can't recommend this highly enough. And it's trade paperback original. Okay, so that is our indie picks. And I am now going to share my screen again, but we are going to look at some more spring titles. One moment. Okay, promo overview. So we just did our indie rep picks. You can see there's the Catalyst and Book Manager links. And this whole presentation, the catalogs I sent you are in presentation order. You can follow along and put your orders in as we go. Just a word of warning, I have my iPad here with my notes. So if you see me looking down and scrolling, that's what I'm doing. I'm not texting. All right, and the other promo that we're running, I'm not going to go through the catalog, but is our client highlights brochure, which is what we always do. It's an extra 3% list of eligible titles, and you have to order 30 units minimum from all of the titles to get that discount. Take a look at these catalogs. They include all the imprints, blue, orange, and green, which is just everything Anika and I do. And the clients really try to put all of their books in these promos. Lots of great gifty things. We have anime as well, graphic novels, DC, architectural books, gardening books for spring, Mother's Day, Father's Day gifts. It's absolutely worth the look through. And when you have your order done up, you can either submit it with the promo code, or if you'd rather send it to Anika and I, that's great too. People definitely do both. Okay, so now we are really getting into the meat of it, as it were. I'm just going to open up my notes. There we go. And let's start talking with cookbooks. So I hope you've had lunch. We're going to begin with Always Home. This is one that had published in hardcover, but really it was peak pandemic when this published. So a lot of people missed out on it. And I would recommend bringing this in paperback. It's a cookbook and a culinary memoir. Fanny Singer is Alice Waters' daughter, who's done the foreword. All foodies all over the world know who Alice Waters is. She really was a pioneer, especially in kind of farm and garden to table cooking. And Fanny grew up calling people like Jacques Pépé, uncle. Very lucky. It's a wonderful culinary memoir and ideal for Mother's Day. Sweeta Polita. This is super fun. She's a beloved baker and blogger, Rosie, and she has now created these sprinkle mixes, which can be bought across the country. She's appeared several times on Martha Stewart. I'm sure she's going to do the talk show circuit again. And these are all super creative cakes or bakes that often have an interactive element. So we have these cakes, piñata cakes, where you cut into them and a core of sprinkles spills out. We have cakes that you can paint on with buttercream. There are cookies that you can draw on with an edible chalk you make. They are so fun, great projects. And she's going to appear everywhere again. Caesar Country. All right. I know Caesars can be a kind of controversial cocktail, but overall, they are beloved by Canadians. Canadians drink 400 billion Caesars a year, which is just stunning. And it is the national drink. So Aaron and Zach are authors here in that lovely photo. They have created Walter, which is a brand of premium drink mixes, bitters, Caesar mix. I've had them before. They're amazing, all made in Canada. And they love Canada and Caesars. So they kind of wrote a love letter to the cocktail and the country by visiting hotels and restaurants from coast to coast. And yes, of course, Quebec is included in there, and sourcing everyone's best Caesar recipes. And they're really incredible. Like there's a lobster Caesar, or your more traditional Caesars, but also Ryan Reynolds, who has aviation gin, among other things, is a fan. And he has contributed his own aviation Caesar in this as well. So that's not a bad name to have attached to your project. Yes, look at this. It's all very technical. They talk about garnishes. The layout is just beautiful. And here I had to include the fashion Caesar. There we have Fashion Santa. I don't know if you remember him, but it was quite a thing from several years ago. And yeah, I'd have a fashion Caesar with Fashion Santa. Why not? Green Fire. All right. Francis Melman, probably most recognizable to most of us who aren't super foodies, from his stint on Chef's Table on Netflix. What's really unique about Francis Melman is he cooks just about everything outside on a grill in open flame. He's a total rock star chef. And usually he uses veg as kind of a condiment or a side dish. And in this book, he focuses on bringing the absolute best flavors out of him. And it's all vegetarian. A lot of the recipes even have vegan options. So if you don't have this amazing open flame setup you see behind Chef Melman, that's okay. He teaches you how to make the best setup with what you have, any kind of barbecue you have, things that you can do in your backyard. And there's over 100 recipes. This book is truly gorgeous. I cannot overstate it. It's like a coffee table cookbook. It talks a lot about the region and cuisines. And here, I'll show you. You can see this is a Spanish language edition, but just how beautiful everything is. And there, this is tofu a la plancha. Amazing. Who wouldn't want to have that as a main course? Okay, we are moving straight into fiction. The other promo that we do have running for spring that I didn't mention, because it's not quite active yet, but I'm going to flag titles throughout that you might want to put a little tick next to. We're going to have a fabulous Black History Month promo running this November to January 31st. So you have everything in time for February. And instead of a couple dozen titles this year, Anika and our colleague Jen, who you would have seen on our virtual holiday presentation, have worked incredibly hard to pull together hundreds of titles. And there's a lot of front list as well. So I'm going to flag titles that are eligible for this promo as we go through. It's going to be an extra 3 points off. You'll be getting an email from us soon with all the codes and everything, because it will be active starting November 1st. And our first book is one of those titles that is on our Black History Month promotion. Another thing to note about that, the assets for it, the posters, everything, they're absolutely incredible. Really are probably our most popular physical assets for promotion. Yinka, Where's Your Husband by Lizzie Demlola Blackburn. I love this read. It's paperback original. And basically we have Yinka, who is this amazing, articulate, witty, relatable, Oxford educated woman who has 12 aunties who, whenever they see her, all they ask is, Yinka, where's your husband? Really frustrated by this, she decides to find a date to her cousin's wedding via spreadsheet. And of course, shenanigans ensue. I mean, her experiences are relatable as wild as the situation can seem. Who hasn't tried to change themselves for love? This is for your readers of Jasmine Gilroy, Love Your Life in the Proposal, and Queenie. Okay, installment number 2 in Marlon James' African Game of Thrones series. So our last one was Black Leopard, Red Wolf, and it worked extremely well. I think some people were a little hesitant with a hardcover at this price, but we know it works, and you can buy larger quantities going in this time. This is told from a different point of view than the first book in the trilogy. It's equally hefty. There's still that kind of Rashomon-like approach of multiple narratives happen, and it's told by the rival of the bounty hunter in the first books, who is the Moon Witch. Totally different perspective, equally unreliable narrator, sure to be just as big of a hit. And then in some truly top-notch historical fiction, we have Eva Stachniak with The School of Mirrors. Eva's best known book is The Winter Palace, and it has sold like gangbusters in Canada. We sold 65,000 copies. This is amazing. It's must-have historical fiction and trade paperback original. Can't get better than that. So this is set in 17th century Versailles. We have a young woman who's plucked out of obscurity and being groomed to be the mistress to a count, who she eventually discovers is actually Louis XVI. Beautiful 18th century rich tapestry of historical fiction. Really, it's the Winter Palace meets The Last Tudor meets Wolf Hall. So you have people who like Philippa Gregory or Geraldine Brooks, they will also love Eva Stachniak. When We Are Birds, this is an incredible supernatural love story. It's totally genre defining. One of my favorite reads. It's set in a fictional town in Trinidad and Tobago. We have a young woman who has the power to guide dead people to the other side, and a young down on his luck Rastafarian who has to break his religious beliefs to get a job as a gravedigger. And Rastafarians are forbidden from interacting with the dead, so he has to shave his dreadlocks. And one day he's working in the cemetery in the middle of a supernatural storm, and of course this woman who can guide the dead finds him there. It's a beautiful love story as they seek justice for the restless dead. Really, I can't name something that's exactly like it. Incredibly unique. But if I had to compare it, I would say it's homegoing meets the surrealism and magic found in Mexican Gothic. Okay. Next, we have Anne Tyler with French Braid. Don't sleep on Anne Tyler. She had an amazing run with her last book, Redhead by the Side of the Road, was incredibly best-selling. And this is what she does best. It's a multi-generational story centered around the matriarch of the family, Mercy Garrett, who is a classic Anne Tyler heroine. It goes from the 1950s to present day, and it really looks at what makes a family not work. Also, oh yeah, the Redhead was nominated. Redhead by the Side of the Road was nominated for the Booker last year, is what helped pump it up, and definitely had her name on everyone's lips again. Not that it ever really left. So for readers of her previous works, but also Lucy Barton and Commonwealth, put this in their hands. Uncertain Kin. Now, I love a short story collection, and this one is truly stellar. Janice Lynn Mather This is not her debut. It's her adult debut, but she's written YA before. And her last YA book, Learning to Breathe, was a GG finalist. So she has chops. This is best compared, as it says in the copy, to Frying Plantain in Scarborough. We're basically following the lives of 18 wildly different women and their stories. They're all Bahamian or Bahamian Canadian. And we just get a wonderful look into the richness and specificity of their lives. Do not skip the short story collection. Lessons in Chemistry. So this is the US cover, but I wanted to show you something that gives you a feeling for how vibrant and joyful and amazing this book is. It's trade paperback original, and I was amazed when I read this. It's about a woman in the 1960s who faces a ton of sexism in chemistry, her profession. She's a brilliant chemist, but people just can't take a woman seriously, except for one man. And she falls in love with him. And through a series of unfortunate events, she becomes an unwed single mother, which, of course, you can imagine goes over really well with her colleagues. And then through a series of spectacular events, she becomes the host of the US's most beloved cooking show. And her secret is that she actually takes women seriously. It's a beautiful book. It went in so many different directions that I just didn't expect. It's about love and perseverance, but about found family too. And there is a character in the book named 630 who is a dog and who is the best. This is one not to sleep on. I think it's absolutely going to be a bestseller. It had strong Eleanor Oliphant vibes and Recipe for a Perfect Wife and Marvelous Miss Maisel thrown in there for good measure. It was beautiful, and it's going to be everywhere. First Time for Everything. This is the UK cover, but I wanted to show you something. Now, I laughed out loud reading the excerpt of this that I could. I can't wait to read more. You are following a very down on his luck gay man who is a proud plant dad and lover of Dolly Parton, but just can't seem to figure out his life. He's devoted to his boyfriend, who's not incredibly devoted to him because he ends up giving him an STD. He also gets kicked out of his flat because his flatmates decide that they want to have a baby, and he's living in what will become the baby's room. So he moves in with his flamboyant non-binary friend and really actually begins to explore himself, his likes, his dislikes, and modern queer life in a way that he never thought he would or could. It's so joyful. It's so fun. I love a queer read with a happy, empowering ending. This is for your readers of Red, White, and Royal Blue, or your lovers of Schitt's Creek or Beach Read, and it's trade paperback original. The Rising Tide. You will have known Sam Lloyd from their debut, The Memory Wood. This is another twisty thriller, all about a family that is #blessed until one day the wife discovers that their yacht has been found abandoned and her husband is missing and may be responsible for wrecking the boat. And it becomes clear that, of course, everything beneath the veneer of this perfect family is not as it seems. It's stunning prose and atmospheric setting, as you can see, the house set on the cliffside. And put this right next to Sherry LaPena. People will pick it up. It's a domestic thriller meets a pulse-pounding novel. Again, Rachel, Marian Keyes. I discovered Marian Keyes much later than most people, I'm sure, with Grown Ups, which was wonderful and delightful. And she does it again with Again, Rachel, which is a story of a woman who was a mess and she's pulled it together and has the life that she thinks she's supposed to have until, of course, fate throws a wrench in her plan. And again, Rachel, is she going through it again? This is the sequel to Rachel's Holiday. Lovers of Marian Keyes will be super happy. And you could also read this without having read Rachel's Holiday first. Recitative. This is very exciting. And just to note the pub date there, that's in February. So make sure you put in your orders early because I'm sure we'll still have some shipping delays, etc., from the holiday season in the earlier months of spring. This is the only short story that Toni Morrison ever wrote. Really, it's the length of a novella, and we have a wonderful foreword by Zadie Smith. So this story, simple in concept, it would seem, follows two women who grew up together and keep meeting at various points in their lives, but seem to be on the opposite side of every issue. And this brilliant thing that Toni Morrison does is one of them is white and one of them is black. And we know this, but we don't know who's who. So you're trying to figure it out from the context clues of the stories. And of course, the questions you ask yourself are questions that we need to ask about the world. Flagging this will also be on our Black History Month promo. They. Now, they is part of a trend that I love. You may have heard of it called Lazarus literature. And this is really taking texts that were beyond their time and were published quite a while ago, but fell into obscurity, and reviving them and dusting them off and giving them to the public that deserves to see them. Kay Dick was a Doubleday publisher, and she was openly bisexual, working and publishing in the UK in the 1970s, which was very unheard of. They is a short dystopian book. I read this in one sitting, and really it's about a headless populist mob or entity called They, which just stomps on anyone who's living slightly outside the lines. So if you're a single woman living alone, you could be a target. If you're a gay couple, you're definitely a target. If you're an artist, if you're a writer, if you're a historian, if you're a craftsman, they might come after you. But with all of that, there's an incredible sense of hope throughout this, the way that artists and people band together and how necessary they are to our world. Don't sleep on this. It's beautiful. It's under $20, and everyone deserves to know who Kay Dick is. And Kay Dick deserves that as well. All right. Pure Color, Sheila Heti. So eagerly anticipated follow-up to Motherhood, which was all about birth in a way. And this is all about dying. I mean, Sheila Heti, it's kind of impossible to summarize the plot of one of her novels, but this is about a woman who's going through the death of her father and is considering how the world dies and lives around us. And maybe the world is a first draft that was created by an entity in order to destroy it. I won't get too philosophical there, but we know Sheila Heti is an amazing, incredible Canadian powerhouse and bestseller. Order more than you think you need for this, especially because it's pubbing in the second week of February. I would order early and make sure you have enough to get you through several weeks because, of course, print runs, it's going to be hard to get restocks on this one. Then we have Roddy Doyle. This is a paperback original, again, flagging that February date. Heartwarming short stories about people who are somehow living with an emptiness in several variations. And it's a very warm portrait of pandemic lives told in 10 stories. Some of them are uplifting and some of them are heartbreaking. A wonderful Roddy Doyle collection. Okay, Montreal favorite Rawi Hodge with Stray Dogs. So his last book, Beirut Hellfire Society, was a smashing success. I would expect nothing less from this book. It is a collection of 12 very short and totally vibrant and cosmopolitan short stories. I mean, he's so well acclaimed. And Beirut Hellfire Society was a finalist for every major award. I'm sure this will do similarly well. Okay, this is so exciting. Young Mungo by Douglas Stewart. Everyone was thrown into fits of rapture by Shuggie Bain, and the same will be true of Young Mungo. Shuggie won the Booker Prize, and this is his first book since. He deals with similar issues of rejection and queer lives. We're in 90s working class Glasgow. We have two young men who are falling in love. One is Protestant, one is Catholic. They face impossible obstacles, and Douglas tells all of it with such compassion and insight. It is beautiful and gorgeous and violent. Anyone who likes Frank McCourt, anyone who likes Hanya Yanagihara, who wrote A Little Life, Anyone who likes Alan Hollinghurst, this is an author and a book for them as well. Then we have some Alexander McCall Smith in The Time of Distance and Other Poems. So this is poetry, which he has done before and always sells quite well. Put this right next to your other Alexander series in your stores. And these are poems that are about isolation and connection. Some of them were published in the London and LA Times. And they are set in different locations all over the world. And 3 of the poems are actually set right here in Canada. My Face in the Light by Martha Shabas. Like the copy says right there, you have fans of Rachel Cusk, Jenny Offill, I would say Sheila Heti too. They will love this book. It's the story of a woman moving through her life thinking and trying not to ruin everything, which is harder than it sounds. She's an actress who's been plagued by a scar across her forehead from a childhood accident. And looking at the end of her 20s, she decides that she's not happy with the life she has, decides to throw it all away and move to London on a whim and a kind of shady job offer. It's beautifully told in classic story of a woman trying to pull it all together, but instead blowing it all apart. And then Alexander McCall Smith, this time, this is fiction, and it's the 44 Scotland Street series. This is brand new. Love in the Time of Birdie. You know what he does, and these are wonderful, very cozy stories. Okay, The Man Who Fell to Earth. I'm sure some of you are like, that's an incredibly old title. Why are you putting it on here? Well, because Walter Tevis, he is the man who, of course, wrote The Queen's Gambit, which you may have noticed was a huge television show this year. And they're doing the same thing with The Man Who Fell to Earth. Netflix, by far, is the media tie-in that actually helps sell more books. So I know, of course, in these, we want to limit the number of media tie-ins that we have in. So if you're only choosing one media tie-in group to bring in the Netflix books because they work. You don't have to order the MTI, that's okay, but bring in some regular versions of The Man Who Fell to Earth and they will sell. The Verifiers, this is trade paperback original, and we have had raves from booksellers and reps already. It's really incredible. It's kind of a family novel about identity that meets a detective story. So our main character is chronically underemployed, very smart. She hasn't yet come out to her Asian family who they wouldn't look kindly upon her preferring girls. And she's recruited by an online murder mystery game to verify everyone's online profiles. And first of all, fascinating job. But when one of her clients goes missing, she ends up getting involved in a real life murder mystery. It's just so wonderfully done. Okay, so I have 3 books to show you, all from the same series. We'll go back to the first one, Shady Hollow. This is a brand new series that is cozy mystery catnip. Juno Black is the pen name for 2 former booksellers, so we like them. They know what they're doing. And it all takes place in what seems like a very quaint English community, but everyone is an animal. So our first book here, we have an ideal woodland village, and when a badger turns up dead, the local reporter, our lovely fox there, has to solve the case. Like I said, total catnip for cozy mystery lovers. They're wonderfully done. I like the design, and they're also releasing 3 of them in a very short span of time. So we have Shady Hollow, book number 1, coming in January. Cold Clay is coming in March. And Mirror Lake is coming in April, which is a great way to launch a series. They are all paperback original, which is fabulous. And the design is just wonderful. They're going to shelve so well together. And this is the Shady Hollow mystery series. Violin Conspiracy. Okay, now I'm going into some fiction from our US imprint. And I have to say, this may be the book that I heard everyone the most excited about. There's already been articles and buzz about this. You may have seen it in Publishers Weekly, but this is all about a young musician who has played his great-grandfather's prize fiddle all his life. He's about to enter an international competition when the violin is stolen, and he finds out it's priceless Stradivarius. And to add to this, we find out that the person who has stolen the violin is a descendant of the family that enslaved our main character's great grandfather. And they claim that he stole the fiddle. So it's a mystery, but there is so much more to it. It's social commentary, it's questions of ownership and reparation, and there's classical music all the way through. Then we have The Swimmers from Julie Otsuka, who's the author of Buddha in the Attic. I love this book. It's short and it's $30 hardcover, which is just great coming from the States. And it's very sharply observed and funny. Basically, we're following a group of swimmers who meet the same time every day in their local pool at somewhere like the Y, if not the Y. And they become obsessed with a crack that begins appearing at the bottom of the pool. And of course, it's not a normal crack. Our colors. So Gengoro Tagame, he's the author of the incredibly popular My Brother's Husband series, which I'm sure many of you have stalked. It's not technically manga, but it certainly fits in well with the manga and anime trend that we're seeing. It is a similar art style and aesthetic, so will appeal to that audience. And this has been translated from Japanese. It's a coming of age and coming out story set in suburban high schools in Japan. Really beautiful. Okay, and we have brand new from John Boyne, The Echo Chamber. And this is a story of a family that is incredibly wealthy and powerful, and they are taken down by a single tweet tweeted by their father. Someone described this to me as Schitt's Creek on acid, which I think is great. Who wouldn't want to read that? And there's also a tortoise involved. No explanation on that yet. Call of the Penguins by Hazel Pryor. So you probably remember Hazel Pryor from her last book, which was, oh my goodness, I'm totally forgetting. However, Call of the Penguins and Veronica and the Penguins. I have totally forgotten the title. How the Penguins Save Veronica. That's it. We have this amazing 87-year-old protagonist who has lived a lot of life and decides that she needs to live more and do so with penguins. It's a great cozy read in paperback. And I think this is book 3 in the series. But I know Veronica did very well in Canada. Okay, moving on to new and nonfiction. I'm going to take this opportunity to have a little water break. Feel free to do the same. It's a point of the year where my voice starts giving out. So if you're sick of your voice, imagine how I feel. If you're sick of my voice, I mean. All right, so starting off nonfiction with The Ex-Boyfriend Yard Sale by Haley McGee. Haley is Canadian. This is such a fun nonfiction paperback original. So Haley is an actress, and she decided to move to London to pursue her career there from Kitchener, Ontario. And she falls into debt, as most of us would in that situation, and decides that she needs to sell her valuable things. But the only things she has of value were given to her by ex-boyfriends. But I mean, if you spent 3 years in a relationship and all you came out of it with was a typewriter, doesn't that make the typewriter worth more? She embarks on this project with a mathematician and statistician, and they end up devising a formula for what we invest in relationships. And then it will spit out a price for the material goods that we're left with. It is absolutely brilliant and heartfelt and relatable. And actually, Haley went on to make it a one-woman show, and it's a fabulous story. If you like Sachi Cool's essays and Sam Irby and Never Have I Ever, Katie Heaney, you will love this. Be a Triangle, Lily Singh. I don't need to really reintroduce Lily to you. She's really well known from her late night talk show, and of course her last book with us, How to Be a Boss, did very, very well. This is a collection about fun and funny, empowering essays on how to come into your own and how to leverage your success to incite progress for others. Um, it's in a slightly different format than How to Be a Boss. It's smaller, almost square shaped. Wonderful gift book. Some of My Best Friends by Tasha Eason. Tasha Eason is a Canadian voice actor. She has been a voice on a ton of cartoons. And this series of essays is all about how we like to pay lip service to huge issues, but not actually do anything about it. These are 9 dark essays about the quick fixes society tries to use to fix systemic issues and how they never work, especially in the entertainment industry. And Tasha Eason largely talks about racism. There's a huge discord between what we say and what we actually do. And this book provides a lot of food for thought. So if you sold Gia Tolentino at all, Zadie Smith's essays, Tasha is absolutely on their level. Lost in the Valley of Death. This is for all of your John Krakauer readers and fans of Adam Schultz, who did Above the Tree Line. So Lost in the Valley of Death. We start by following this social media famous traveler who has done years and years of survivalist training, who decides to go to the Bavardi Valley and the Himalayas in order to see a particular guru there. And when he gets there, he disappears. It turns out that a lot of people have actually disappeared in the Bavardi Valley. But not only does Harley Rustad investigate those potential crimes, he looks at our main traveler, Justin's obsession with travel and movement and how that has led him to increasingly dangerous situations. It's really amazing travel plus true crime writing. Scoundrel, Sarah Weinman. Oh, I'm so excited for this. Sarah Weinman is Canadian and she is one of the crime columnists for the New York Times. And she is a hell of a writer. This is about Edgar Smith, who was a criminal who pretty much pulled off a wrongful conviction suit in reverse. He was convicted in an open and shut case for killing a 15-year-old girl, sent to death row, and somehow weaseled his way out of it. He was released, and not only that, he signed multiple book deals. He was on all of the talk shows. He was a literary sensation until he tried to kill again. It's an incredible story of how what we're willing to overlook for certain qualities in criminals and injustice, and just a really amazing story. And Sarah Weinman is an incredible researcher. This is a crime I had never heard of, and it's fascinating. Okay, moving on to some American nonfiction. The Hard Sell. So this is all about the startup that is responsible for basically creating fentanyl and the whistleblower who called them out. If you sold any of Bad Blood by John Carreyrou, this is a book that you can sell as well. It's definitely going to be a story that will be in the news. You can see Patrick Radden Keefe, who doesn't just blurb everything. He has blurbed this, so it's well worth putting on your shelves. Speaking of thumbs, a psychiatrist decodes your relationship text. Who doesn't need this? I need to give this to some of my friends because I'm incredibly bad at decoding the relationship text. But Mimi Winsberg is a medical doctor, and she does what so many people want others to do for them. She looks at online personas and helps decode what certain messages and personas might actually mean. In on the joke, Sean Levy. So I mentioned Marvelous Miss Maisel once before. I'll mention it again because anyone who's watching that show would love this book because it's about what it was really like for the first woman in comedy. So we have a deep dive into women who broke into the all-male comedy world, including Belle Barth, Rusty Warren, Joan Rivers, and Phyllis Diller. It's a lot of fun. I Was Better Last Night, Harvey Fierstein. So excited for this. He's a 4-time Tony Award winner. He's an icon. He's a gay rights activist. He has some incredible stories. and he tells them to all of you. He tells them all to you, rather, and to all of us. I love this cover. He is definitely going to be doing the talk show circuits promoting this. And then this might be especially for my Montreal stores, but this is the story of Zabar's, which is a legendary Jewish deli in New York City, and the family that founded it. And they actually give you some of their secret recipes as well. Who can resist? Okay, The Man Who Mistook His Job for His Life. This is from Random House UK. And I feel like it's a title that all of us need right now. You can see that it's January. So order this with your Christmas stuff and put it out on the New Year, New You tables. And basically, it's about the increasing blend between work life and home life and selves, and especially relevant now that our work has come home with many of us. Okay, we're going to do a quick whistle stop tour through all of the paperback offerings. So these are all books that have previously been published in hardcover, now available in paperback. Clara and the Sun, Kazuo Ishiguro. The hardcover was one of our best sellers last year. You couldn't get stock for a while. Amazing. Don't sleep on the paperback just because it sold so well in hardcover. That Old Country Music, Kevin Barry, the genius behind Nightboat to Tangier and Beetlebone. These are 10 short stories now in paperback. Of course, they always work better in paperback, under $20. I read through this. He's a genius. It's a top-notch collection. Then we have Martin Amos's Inside Story now in paperback. This is his very autobiographical fiction book. Empire of Pain, Patrick Radden Keefe, incredible story of the Sacklers and the opioid crisis. And there was just recently a verdict about the Sacklers and OxyContin. They cannot be charged again in relation to the opiate addiction crisis. So it's more relevant than ever, sadly. My Mother's Daughter, Petite Félicien. If you slept on the hardcover, pick this up in softcover because she is now more recognizable than ever because she was one of CBC's top Olympic announcers this year. Return of the Trickster. This is the end of the Trickster trilogy. Book number 3, now in paperback. And then we have Whereabouts from Jhumpa Lahiri. Brand new cover on this. And China, which Edward Rutherford always sells best in Quebec out of anywhere. People love him. And this is a nice substantial paperback at 800 pages. You definitely want to bring this in. Then we have Haruki Murakami, first person singular. We have a brand new cover on this one. I love the monkey. And also his readers are completionists. They usually want everything he publishes. So bring a few in for sure. Then What You Are, MG Basanji, an indie, longtime indie favorite and won the Giller twice. This is a collection of short stories. The Sister's Tale, Beth Pounding, another one I feel like people kind of slept on initially, and then it skyrocketed to the top of the Globe bestseller list for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's top-notch historical fiction. She writes about pauper auctions, which are something that actually happened in New Brunswick, sadly not long enough ago. And The Sister's Tale is now in a different paperback format. It had flaps before. Now it is without for $17. Ethan Hawke, his novel, which is about an actor going through a terrible divorce while performing Shakespeare, also pretty autobiographical, now in paperback. Hour of the Witch, the Chris Bohalian. This did so well in hardcover, and I think it especially was pumped up by the Flight Attendant TV series running at the same time, so now in paperback. Then the newest Joan Didion collection, now in paperback. Crying in H Mart, another roaring success, New York Times bestseller, couldn't get stock for a while. Michelle Zauner is also an amazing musician who fairly recently launched another album. Then Great Circle, this is one that we definitely slept on in hardcover, but now it is currently up for the Booker. And it is the story of one of the first female aviatrixes. And then we jump ahead in time to an actress who is dealing with some fairly severe issues playing her in a movie. It's an absolutely beautiful story and potentially soon to be an award winner. So if you don't have this in hardcover, I would bring in some just in case of a win, and it's already been boosted by being on the list. Then Michio Kaku, The God Equation. He's a science author who always sells amazingly well in Canada. He wrote The Future of the Mind and The Future of Humanity, and his newest book, now in paperback. And then we have two John Grishams in paperback, Sully, so we have it in the regular paperback trim size, and then we have it in mass market. Okay, and then Doctor Who, The Ruby's Curse. Now, I know there are a billion Doctor Who books and series. This one was a standalone story that did incredibly well in indies as well, who don't usually carry Doctor Who. So I would bring this in. It's River Song, who is a super popular character, and you don't need to bring in a billion books. You can just bring in this one and watch out for new ones in the series as well. Okay, so that is it for me for the Knopf Doubleday list. Please join me later for all other 3 presentations. I have sent you the catalog list via email. We have Catalyst and Book Manager. And a PDF of the PowerPoints as well is available if there's anything you want to flip through slowly. I realize this was quite a whirlwind tour, but also if you have any questions about holiday stock, etc., please feel free to reach out. I look forward to someday seeing you in person again soon. Thanks so much.